We've got major news around the WNBA as the league is set to start its 28th season next week. So it's time for some W Talk, and we're going to do it and chat with the great women's basketball writer and analyst for CBS Sports, as well as the founder of Black Rosie Media, Ayala, who joins me now. Erica, what's going on?
Hey, I'm good. It's ironic that the news that broke today, at least about Toronto, happened while I'm in an airport.
Yeah, yeah. And I had to reach out to you. I was like, hey, Erica, can you come on and talk with me about this? And Erica was like, sure. And here we are now. So, Erica, let's go back before we get to that news about Toronto. Let's go back to Tuesday, because on Tuesday, WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert announced that the league is starting a full-time charter flights program that will begin this season. Now, players have been asking for this for quite some time. So what have you been hearing about the reaction from players around the league on this, and why did the program finally get started this season?
Well, the first thing is, and there were media availabilities because, of course, we're in preseason right now, and the players were finding out just like everyone else via social media. So we saw a few reporters, I believe from ESPN, the Associated Press. There was some kind of gathering where a handful of reporters were invited to speak to Cathy. I don't know if it was in person or virtually or over the phone, but and so this plan and the upcoming rollout of charter flights, a full charter flight program, was to be announced. And then backtrack to now yesterday, Thursday, the league released their own press release. As far as why right now, honestly, we have not heard from Cathy Engelbert except for through those reporters that were in that meeting and through the press release. So we don't have a lot of details regarding this. But as I alluded to, we have heard reports. Shireen Ahmed from CBC in Canada is reporting that WNBA has granted Toronto an expansion team, so that's an expansion fee. We know that there are broadcast deals and reports on the NBA side, which would in turn likely include the WNBA, are that those broadcast deals are coming close to final. So that would be an influx of money. We also know that the WNBA had a capital raise a couple of years ago, so they've been repurposing that money and investing that money because it was a capital raise, so they will have to give the investors that investment back. So that's been an influx. And then we've seen attendance numbers rising. We've seen viewership numbers on the rise. And that is expected to only get even bigger with the rookie class, of course, starting with the #1 overall pick, Caitlin Clark, coming in. So I think it's probably a mix of all of those things. But what made it so that the WNBA could announce this and have it ready, at least what we're hearing, by the start of this season, which will be on Tuesday, we're not exactly sure right now.
Not sure right now, but it sounds like a situation of follow the money, right? A lot of money and a lot of interest in the game growing, so that has something to do with that. So stay tuned. We'll have more on that for sure. Now, you kind of not hinted at this, you mentioned this in your last answer. According to multiple reports on Friday, the W is expanding to Toronto as the city will get the league's 14th franchise. It'll be the first WNBA-based franchise outside of the United States, and the team will begin play in 2026. So with the league having exhibition games in Canada the past 2 seasons, do you believe Toronto is a good market for the WNBA to expand to?
Yes, and I think we knew that last year. As you mentioned, this preseason was the second year in a row that Canada had a game. They played in Toronto last year and in Edmonton, so on the West Coast this year. But what we saw in the Toronto game was as soon as the tickets were available, they were sold out. All of the merchandise. I think the last number that I heard from WNBA representatives last year was upwards of 98% of the merchandise on hand at the arena that they had in Toronto sold out during that game. So we see that the Toronto market, the Canadian market, even more broadly, is very interested in this. I also think just it's kind of perfect, and I wore my WNBA logo hat, but Tangerine Bank is a bank in Canada, and that seems like a perfect marketing fit right there for both parties. And that was the title sponsor to bring this, specifically the broadcast and I think some of the other details for the Toronto game to fruition. So I think this is a great market. We also know Kia Nurse coming out of UConn, coming into the WNBA. Now she's made a few different stops, but what you absolutely know if you follow Kia Nurse, the Nurse family overall, really, but specifically, we're going to talk about Kia here. She has been doing a lot of work to build programs for girls in Canada who want to play basketball. We see that the Canadian women's national team continues to really push the envelope when it comes to international competition, including the Olympics, where Kia Nurse will once again be an Olympian for Paris 2024. So I think it's, again, a convergence of a lot of things, Dexter. This didn't just happen in a vacuum because of two preseason exhibition games. I think this has been doing market research. This is just the right swell at the right time. It's not just Kia Nurse as far as Canadians representing in the WNBA, and it seems like this is the right opportunity, and it's a great opportunity coupled with the charter flight news. And again, we've seen that some people perhaps hinting at, or at least wondering, if the announcement of the charter flights, preceding the reports of expansion to Toronto are somewhat linked, because it would be really difficult to expand into a different country. You have to do all kinds of things when you travel into a different country. And remember, it's not just US and Canadian players playing in the WNBA. So there's all kinds of other things that come into play there. And so perhaps the charter flights program and the expansion to Toronto are a little bit linked. But again, we don't know that for sure. It would make logical sense, but until we hear and have time to speak with the commissioner and perhaps some representatives from the WNBA Toronto franchise, we are left to wonder.
We are left to wonder. But yeah, it's hard, as you said, to think that the two things aren't linked together at all. So here's the thing, Erica. By 2026, the league will have expanded to 14 teams. As we know, the Golden State franchise is coming next season. The Athletic, they first reported that the league intends to expand to 16 teams at some point. What are some other markets that you think could be right for the W to expand to?
Well, we have been hearing that on the short list of cities are Philadelphia. Other people have mentioned Charlotte. Kathy Engelbert herself mentioned not a city, but a location, or more specifically, a state in Florida. And so those are some places that we might see. We also know that Utah, they stole, if depending on how you feel about hockey, in Arizona, but they took the Arizona franchise and are sending that out to Utah. We also know that in the NWSL, Utah has returned a franchise for women's soccer to Utah, and that could be a market. Perhaps Denver could be a market. So I think there are a decent amount of cities, both that Kathy Engelbert, Commissioner Engelbert herself, has been mentioning, but also some that make good sense, including cities where we've already seen WNBA basketball. I happen to be wearing my Cheryl Swoops shirt today from Playa Society, and Houston. A lot of people would love to see Houston get involved again. Charlotte is another city. And with people like Serena Williams saying that one day she wants to invest in a WNBA team, I think it's really going to be sky's the limit, but it has to make good sense, especially with where the growth of women's basketball is. So I think there are a lot of different destinations that would make sense logistically, but also given where the pockets are in the NCAA.
Yeah, and it'll be so interesting. I'd like to see the Comets come back. I like the T-shirt there. Shout out to Player Society. Bring back the Comets. We want to see that. Last thing for me, Erica, is with the increase in viewership, as you talked about, around women's hoops and the record viewership that we saw with the 2024 WNBA draft, do you think this upcoming WNBA season is the most anticipated in years? And what are you going to be keeping a close eye on this season?
I think it definitely is making a strong case. There are a few other blips that we'll see in the 28-year or soon to be 28th season of the WNBA. The obvious one is the first season. I think you also saw a blip when the recently retired Candace Parker came into the league. Prior to that, we also had, of course, when Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, Maya Moore, these are the kinds of players that have come into the league. But from my estimation, there's something very unique about this rookie class. Now, I mentioned Clark, of course, but you also have another Canadian right there, Aaliyah Edwards, we're seeing on the screen. Angel Reese becoming only the second ever WNBA player to go to the Met Gala behind Brittany Griner. You have Camila Cardozo, who's an international player alongside Edwards. There's just so much talent and more in the pipeline. So there's an excitement in a way that also matches the numbers. And we're starting to see people tune in. WNBA, women's basketball overall becoming appointment viewing. And yes, again, some of that, a lot of people kind of point at the Caitlin Clark effect. But listen, Dallas sold out their first three, regular season games, and only one of those is against Indiana. The Las Vegas Aces, reigning champions, sold out season tickets. The New York Liberty, really good sales for their premier packages. So this is more than just Caitlin Clark, but it's definitely impacted by this rookie class.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Very talented rookie class coming in. And as you've mentioned, the numbers just have been going up and up and up. And it's going to be a really exciting season for the W28 season starting next week. That is Erica Ayala, basketball writer covering women's hoops and also an analyst for CBS Sports. She's also the founder of Black Rosie Media. Go check out her work. Erica, you know this. I'm always happy when I get to talk some hoops, and especially women's hoops with you. So thank you for the time. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Love the work that you're doing.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Talk soon.